Flu season is around the corner. How are you protecting your health? We'll debut a new series, Building a Strong Immune System.
I've got more energy. I've lost over 20 pounds.
We'll show you what you need to do to stay healthy.
You're at a higher risk of developing ultimately other issues.
Starting with a good night's sleep.
That's your body's first response.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Hemorrhagic fever that is known as Ebola is spreading so fast in Africa, it's hard to keep up with it. Reports that what's called Marburg has been showing up in Uganda. But these are the words of the head of the Centers for Disease Control. It's the latest warning that the threat from this killer virus is far from over.
And here in America, the patient infected with the deadly disease is fighting for his life in Dallas. Dale Hurd has the story.
The condition of a Liberian man in Texas is worsening. Thomas Eric Duncan, the first person diagnosed with Ebola in the U.S., is in critical condition at a Dallas hospital. His family says he's unconscious on a ventilator and dialysis after kidney failure. Duncan's girlfriend, who is under quarantine, is unhappy with the care he's receiving.
I don't think Americans, they are doing enough to save me.
Duncan's girlfriend and family are having their temperature taken at least twice a day, while specially trained hazmat crews work to decontaminate Duncan's apartment. Neighbors are worried.
Being here actually scares me. I want to get out here.
The CDC is monitoring 9 high-risk patients who came in direct contact with Duncan, while about 40 other people in Dallas considered low risk are being watched. One of them, this homeless man. Also today, a freelance cameraman for NBC News who was infected with the virus while in Liberia is expected to arrive in Nebraska for treatment. Although experts say Ebola is not airborne and can only spread through contact with bodily fluids, U.S. health officials are leaving nothing to chance. CDC workers have been traveling across the country responding to possible cases of Ebola.
Our top priority is the safety of Americans. I remain quite confident we will not have a widespread outbreak.
And Operation Blessing is responding to the situation in Africa by sending American aid workers, multiple chlorine generators, and a shipping container full of critically needed hospital supplies to Liberia. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. I want to point out this chlorine is what is needed to kill that virus. And OB right now, Operation Blessing, is the only organization, including the various international agencies, that is supplying chlorine. We have chlorine generators that are turning out gallons and gallons of chlorine, which, of course, you can mix with water. And it is the most effective way of killing that dread virus. So if you want to help, you can do it by the number is 1-800-759-0700, and it's Disaster Relief Fund, Operation Blessing, CBN Center, Virginia Beach. So where there is a need, we try to put somebody out there to fulfill it. And I'm also telling you that a couple of our reporters are going into Liberia. George Thomas, one of our senior guys, I just hate to see him go into that area, but he's a brave fellow and he's a tremendous reporter. And we'll be bringing you first-hand reports from Monrovia and other areas. But the sanitation is so bad, the medical facilities are so primitive that the possibility of an outbreak in, well, look where it's Guinea, it's Liberia, you've got Sierra Leone, and you would have the Ivory Coast shortly thereafter. And they've contained it, I think, in Nigeria, but it was some cases, I believe. And we're talking about what's called Marburg, which is another form of it in Uganda. So this thing can explode, and then we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cases. This is an awful, awful outbreak, and we shouldn't minimize it. Well, in other news, will President Obama keep up the attacks on ISIS terrorists after the midterm election? John Jessup has that question that was raised by a senator from New Hampshire. Here's John.
That's right, Pat. Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte says she's worried President Obama may not finish what he started in the fight against ISIS. On Fox News Sunday, she said she fears the president will turn his attention away from the Islamic State threat once the midterm elections are over.
And I think what we have here, Chris, is a problem where the president's foreign policy is being trapped by his campaign rhetoric. And I'm very fearful that as we look at the current military strategy, that it is surrounding the November elections and that he won't have the resolve to follow through with what needs to be done in a sustained effort to destroy ISIS. And we are about to repeat the same thing with regard to Afghanistan, which Secretary Panetta also mentions in his book as well.
Former Obama Defense Secretary Leon Panetta wrote that he publicly advocated for training and security for Iraq's military and stressed the country's stability was not only in Iraq's interests, but for America's as well. Pat?
You know, John, I've been thinking about this, and I'm sure others have, and the American people do not want so-called boots on the ground. But like it or not, we've got to do it. And the quicker we can deal with this bunch, the better it'll be. They're a ragtag group, but they're making a state, and they've got so much money coming in from oil and from smuggling and from human trafficking and who knows what else they're doing. I think it would be appropriate to take a couple of well-armed divisions, possibly people like Rangers and Delta Force people, and go in there and just blow them away, and especially capture the head of that organization, do whatever is needed to bring him to justice or to eliminate him. But these are brutal killers, and the longer they stay around, the more deadly they become. They're threatening Baghdad. They're moving across into the possibility of Turkey. They want to expand their influence, and the name, the ISIL thing, the L comes from Levant, which means that entire crescent in the Middle East, they want to be controlled, and then from there, that's the caliphate, and then they want the rest of the world. And if we leave them alone, they will metastasize, and it will be deadly, and before long, they'll be blowing up buildings here in America and threatening the Capitol itself. We can't leave them alone, and they need to be destroyed, and we can't play with them. We're playing with them now. And that's not enough. They're spreading out, so those airstrikes are like pinpricks. We're not hurting them. We need to get in there and do it seriously with somebody who is tough. We need somebody who is a tough leader of a group like Delta, like some of the Rangers, some of the other people we've got who are specialists in this, and go after them and destroy them. John?
Pat, the head of the FBI says the Khorasan group may be planning a terrorist attack against the U.S. The Obama administration claimed it disrupted a major plot against U.S. airliners when it destroyed the group's headquarters in Syria. But FBI Director Jim Comey told 60 Minutes the terrorists may still be planning to strike America.
Khorasan was working and may still be working on an effort to attack the United States or our allies, and looking to do it very, very soon. I can't sit here and tell you whether it's their plan is tomorrow or 3 weeks or 3 months from now. Given our visibility, we know they're serious people bent on destruction, and so we have to act as if it's coming tomorrow.
The Khorasan group is part of al-Nusra, which is a Syrian offshoot of al-Qaeda. Al-Nusra is known for its bomb-making capabilities and trying to hit international targets. Hundreds of people met in Jerusalem Sunday, joined by millions around the world to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The 13th annual day of prayer brought both Jews and Christians together to pray in what has grown into a worldwide event. God TV broadcasts the prayer meeting internationally.
We're here today because Jerusalem is really a city like no other. And people often don't understand that what happens in and around this city impacts the nations of the world. Everyone who is concerned with the future of our planet needs to be concerned with what happens in Jerusalem and with praying for the peace of Jerusalem, which is the key to peace for all the nations.
Thousands of churches around the world also took part in the prayer meeting. It encourages people to follow the command in Psalm 122, verse 6, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they that love you prosper. And here in the U.S., former presidential candidate Governor Mike Huckabee and Concerned Women for America joined forces to sponsor the Stand with Israel rally on Capitol Hill. Paul Strand brings us the story.
The president of Concerned Women for America explained this rally was birthed when she was in Israel and realized why it's important to support Israel today as it faces enemies who want to wipe it out. She asked herself then if she would have supported Jews during World War II when they also faced the threat of extinction.
If I had been alive during the Holocaust, what would I have done? Would I have been one of those people, one of those Christians who just turned away and turned a blind eye to the evil that was right before me?
Showing support for Israel isn't just taking an altruistic stand, because those here were quick to point out that the enemies who would destroy Israel first are completely ready and dedicated to turning around and destroying America next.
Former Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee said he believes God will save Israel from destruction. But ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran still want to destroy it, and he warns they wouldn't stop there.
You honestly think that if they were to achieve that they would say, well, that's it, we're done? Israel isn't the ultimate target, we are.
CBN's terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck agreed, pointing out that Iran will have intercontinental ballistic missiles by 2015, and it could use those missiles to target America.
Israel is the little Satan, a bump on the road to the great Satan. Us, their words, not mine.
Concerned Women for America wanted to show there are also many young concerned women for Israel. Among them, Raquel Minka, a young Baltimore Jew who, when she heard there'd be an anti-Israel protest in her neighborhood, threw together a counter-rally with hundreds more participants. To her, this is personal.
My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. They fought the fight. My dad is a wounded IDF veteran. He fought the fight. And now I'm doing the same.
Leading conservative writer Bill Kristol says America has to take a stand in the Middle East and fight.
We know what a world without an Israel and with an America that's weak and withdrawn looks like. And that's the world of 1939 or so, 75 years ago. And that's a world that leads to a world war, and that's a world that leads to a Holocaust.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Middle income and poor people give more of their income to charity, and states with a higher percentage of churchgoers top the rankings. Those are some of the findings from the latest report from Chronicle of Philanthropy. The Chronicle analyzed IRS data and found poor and middle income Americans have increased their charitable giving, while the wealthiest give a smaller share. The most generous states, as we mentioned earlier, included those with high church attendance, topped by Utah, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. And Pat, it sounds like those people know a little something about cheerful givers.
They sure do, and that's where it's going to be. What did Margaret Thatcher said? Socialism will stop when there's nobody's other people's money that you can take to spend. Socialists don't give out of themselves. They want to take it from you and give it away, and they say they're compassionate. The people who really care are those that dip into their own pockets and give out of their own money instead of trying to take it from somebody else. And that's the true mark of generosity. And the people who love the Lord are the ones who are the most generous. Terry?
Well, are you feeling a little groggy today? Did you have trouble waking up? You might want to watch out, because losing sleep is doing more to your body than just making you tired. We'll explain more as we premiere our new series on protecting your health right after this.
Our bodies are vulnerable to attack.
Nobody left to fight the cold and flu entry.
Because of our food.
Anything that ends in an ose, that's a sugar.
We'll show you how to protect your health by watching what you eat.
Most important thing that feeds our defense system is in fact food and food choices.
Part 2 of our immune boosting series.
It's a numbers game and a speed game.
On the next 700 Club.
Well, certainly there have been times in your life when you've pulled an all-nighter. Maybe you've stayed out late with friends, or you were kept awake by noisy neighbors next door, or even a crying baby in the next room. There have been nights when we've sacrificed a few hours of sleep. But when you do that, you're not just setting yourself up to being groggy in the morning, you're also putting your body at risk. Gordon explains more in the first part of our new series called Protect Your Health.
We've all heard about the importance of getting a good night's sleep. Yet 4 out of 10 people get only 6 hours of sleep or less a night. That doesn't just leave them feeling tired the next day, it's also weakening their immune systems.
Simply put, when we sleep, our bodies repair and restore themselves. Without enough sleep, we become targets for all kinds of sickness.
When individuals are getting less than, let's say, 5 to 6 hours of sleep, it's been found that your pro-inflammatory markers in your blood, so these cytokines that are communicating between different cells, they are elevated. And when some of these pro-inflammatory markers are elevated, you're at a higher risk of developing ultimately other issues.
Like trouble fighting off colds and flu. To prove this point, researchers studied 2 groups of men. One group slept 4 hours a night, and the other slept 8. After 1 week, they compared the blood samples from each group. The men who slept 8 hours a night had twice the flu-fighting antibodies. In other studies, scientists discovered that when we're sleep deprived, our T-cell numbers go down.
You need T cells in your body, absolutely. They're your body's first defense of getting rid of the bugs, germs, bacteria, viruses, fungi, any of those infections that you have. That's your body's first response.
It's one thing to choose sleep deprivation because you're working or playing too much. Insomnia is entirely different. It's trying to get a good 8 hours and failing because of trouble falling asleep, or waking up and not being able to get back to sleep. If you struggle with insomnia, you may be tempted to reach for a sleeping pill. But doctors say there's some other things you should try first.
Sleeping pills generally have some long-term effects that we're still learning about. There's some, concerns about memory issues that could develop as a result of taking these medicines long-term. And in some instances, they can make the underlying medical condition worse.
So instead of popping a pill, cut back, or better yet, cut out all caffeine.
Caffeine is in all sorts of things, so it doesn't necessarily have to be coffee. It could be tea. Green tea has caffeine in it, maybe not as much as coffee, but your Monster energy drinks, your 5-hour energies, any of these types of things, they do have caffeine in them. Chocolate.
In addition to caffeine, just say no to that nap on the couch.
A lot of people think, oh, I didn't sleep well at night, I'm going to take a nap in the afternoon. Well, that's just reducing your body's drive to want to sleep at nighttime.
At least an hour before bedtime, dim the lights and stop looking at anything that emits light, like the TV or the computer.
Ultimately, when we get stimulated with light, it reduces our body's melatonin production. And we need melatonin to help us fall asleep at night and to maintain sleep during the majority of the nighttime.
Regular exercise will also have you sleeping like a baby.
The exercise has a neurochemical impact in improving your sleep.
Don't eat within a few hours of bedtime, and don't take a shot of alcohol before bed. It will knock you out all right, but it will also wake you up later. When you get ready for bed, make sure your bedroom is dark and cool. Don't pay bills, worry about tomorrow, or argue with your spouse. All these things cause wakefulness. Instead, read a chapter in the Bible. Meditating on Scripture will calm you down, and it's a great way to end the day. One more thing, try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Your body needs an established rhythm of sleep. If you've tried everything and you still feel exhausted during the day, you might be one of the millions of Americans who suffer with sleep apnea. It can damage your health, and many people don't even know they have it. Sleep apnea occurs when your airway closes on and off throughout the night, so you never get the deep restorative sleep you need.
Common symptoms of sleep apnea, number one is snoring, loud disruptive snoring. Certainly if there's somebody that tells you that you're choking and gasping and you're actually stopping breathing while sleeping, that's another one. Another symptom is unrefreshing sleep. When you're waking up, and let's say you've allowed yourself 8 hours of sleep, but you wake up and felt like you're hit by a truck, you barely slept at all.
If you think you might have sleep apnea, get tested at a sleep center. Tom Kramer was diagnosed with it 2 years ago. Since then, he's used the CPAP machine every night, and he says he feels like a new man.
I think that just now my immune system, it's much better. I don't get colds or, the sinus infections and so forth like I used to. I don't wake up with a sore throat and a dry throat. That's a big thing too.
The CPAP machine blows a gentle stream of air to prevent the throat from closing so you don't wake up.
I've got more energy. I've lost over 20 pounds just being on the CPAP.
By making some common sense changes, you can get the sleep you need and enjoy a much stronger immune system.
Thank you.
The significance of sleep, who knew?
I knew. I didn't know that much. It's pretty, but
Yeah.
you know, Terry, the big thing is to make sure there's no light, because there's always light. Everywhere you turn around, there's light. You got to make sure you sleep in a dark room. And the best temperature is about 65 degrees, and most people want it a lot warmer than that, and that's not good. So
Well, sometimes you have to break habits. You know, some people
yeah.
go to sleep with the television set on.
No way.
That's terrible for you.
Well, either that or they have a computer and the computer doesn't completely turn off, so it's
that little
flashing.
green lights.
Yeah, there's something going on, and the TV is not completely off, and so there's a light, and light's filtering in, so you need a dark room, and you need 65. I find something very helpful. There's a friend of mine, you know, who went to South Africa, and he came back with a thing called Slow Mag. It was a magnesium slow release that was a wonderful thing for sleep. Magnesium is very good for calming people down, and it's excellent for you. A lot of people have a magnesium shortage, so magnesium is good, and you know, it keeps you from getting leg cramps and things. But I'm a fan of melatonin, but some people it just doesn't work, and you know,
You take quite a bit of it to make it effective.
so you got to be careful how much of it you take, but it works. But no substitute for hitting the sack
and being at peace when you do that, you know, not mulling over the problems of the day or the week or the month.
I was at the University of North Carolina for Saturday, and my friend Andy Kaiser is a brilliant heart. He's head of the cardiology at, I think, the medical center there at UNC. He met me, and he had said, I did an aorta replacement about 2 o'clock this morning, and he maybe got a couple hours sleep.
Good grief.
And I said, you know, what is it? He said, well, we've got this thing. You have him on a heart-lung machine. Well, actually, he said they put him to death. I mean, they freeze him, the people. And he said, I had 20 minutes. And if I don't get him fixed in 20 minutes, he's gone. So, I mean, you talk about under pressure.
Andy, get a good night's sleep. Very good night's sleep.
I said, what about doctors? Well, doctors get used to this business of all-nighters, and so he had a couple of hours sleep, and he was doing fine. But I can't do that, and I think we're not supposed to. So the more sleep,
I think we're not supposed to either. I think we do adapt to things.
I'm a great believer in naps too. You know, my father lived to ripe old age, and he always took a 30-minute nap.
Yeah, my gram called it 40 winks.
40 winks. Well, I mean, you know, my father's secretary would leave the office, and they'd say 30. and
He'll be back.
he had a couch, and he'd sack out for 30 minutes, and then he worked out in the gym. But he was very active and very strong. But I think a nap, I don't mind taking a nap. Naps are good for you.
You know, our bodies are pretty amazing, and if we listen, they will often gently tell us what they need. Well, we're going to talk about what our bodies need throughout this week on the 700 Club. We'll be showing you more ways that you can protect your health and build a strong immune system. And you know, with the flu system coming, you want to know all of this. The good news, if you miss an episode, you can just call that number that's on your screen. We're going to send you a free DVD containing all of the 5 parts you'll see this week. And if you're a member of the 700 Club and you use Pledge Express, you'll receive the DVD automatically. So just look for it in the mail. It'll be coming to you. Also, you can watch this series by going to our website. That's cbn.com. So you can take advantage of watching all of this information on how to build a healthy immune system right there. We're going to be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
Up next,
could I be your guest here?
a day in the life.
I am cooking in here.
From long walks to hard labor.
I feel like I'm gonna die.
Our reporter discovers the simple life isn't one at all.
I could not be a woman in Africa.
Throughout his career as a CBN reporter, Dan Ramey has helped widows, orphans, and at-risk families, changing their lives along the way. But in his latest project, something else happened. This time, they changed Dan's life. Take a look.
I'm Dan Ramey, and I travel the world, bringing back stories of the good CBN does in people's lives. I have a master's in anthropology, and I love meeting new people and learning about different cultures. I've battled among the Maasai, seen earthquake aftermath in Haiti, and walked the shepherd's fields of the Holy Land. Now, I want to spend at least 24 hours with some of the families we help. I want to work with them, eat with them, and understand firsthand what they go through, struggling to survive, one day at a time. Less than 100 families live in the small Christian village of Khorasan in central Nigeria. As women shelled locust beans in the shade, the local pastor took me around to some of the homes. That's how I met Monday and his family.
Dan, this Monday.
Hello, Monday. Yeah, is this your family here?
Yes. This is my wife, Agnes.
Hello, Agnes.
His wife, Agnes, had just had a baby 4 days earlier, so there was a new addition to the family. As Monday showed me the small compound of their home, I discovered they had a guest room.
Could I be your guest here?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nagode. Thank you.
I was really surprised when you all came into my house. We have very little, and I felt unworthy of your presence. I didn't know what I would feed everyone, but I was happy that you wanted to be my friend.
We all knew people from the city were coming to visit the village, but when I saw a white man from the United States coming into our house, I couldn't believe what was happening.
That night, I shared a simple meal with Monday and his family. Soon, it was time for bed. So I'm pretty well set for the evening. Mattress is nice and thick and actually pretty comfortable. Got a jacket for a pillow. I know that I'm not going to use that as a jacket because I am cooking in here. The day cooled off to about 75 degrees outside, but I would guess it's about 85 degrees inside. So it's going to be a long, hot night, but in the morning, I'm going to wake up ready for a hard day's work. As the sun rose the next morning, the women and children of the village took basins and started their mile-long walk to the watering hole.
Since Agnes just had a baby, she's not going to get water, but I'm going with her sisters and some of the other village women. So I'm queued up at the watering hole here, and looking at that water, at best, it might be described as like dirty bath water. With all the animals and stuff I've seen around, I can't imagine what's living in that little pond. I entertained the crowd with my basin balancing skills, then started the walk home. The mile back felt a whole lot longer with 40 pounds of water on my head. Right after sunrise, it was already pushing 100 degrees. I could not be a woman in Africa. We got your water, Agnes. Oh.
Apparently, I was the only one who wasn't used to walking 2 miles to have water.
She's not even winded. I feel like I'm gonna die.
Every day, fires have to be made to boil water and cook. For breakfast, all we had was pop, a traditional cornmeal drink, and some bread. I watched the girls play with their only toys, dolls that were nothing more than old milk bottles and hair extensions. Once they started their chores, I went to work with Monday at his carpentry shop, where he makes furniture. By noon, it was 120 degrees. I was surprised to see that Monday did all of his work using simple hand tools.
I used to have an electric saw and a grinder. Then one day, my landlord called me and said someone had broken into my shop. All of my tools had been stolen, and I could not afford to replace them.
This is another room of the house that I didn't even see during the original tour. Agnes used to have this set up as a shop. It was the only shop in the entire village. But she got appendicitis and had to have her appendix removed. They sold everything in the shop and used the money to pay for her medical bills. So this is something I think we can get set back up for them pretty easily.
That evening, a storm blew in and drowned out the cooking fire. I knew they didn't have much food, so the rain provided a good excuse for me to buy everyone dinner. Later, as lightning lit up the night sky outside my window, I thought about what we could do for Monday and his family the next day. The first thing we did was dedicate a new well that CBN had just dug. The water's clean, and it's right around the corner from Monday's and Agnes's home. After that, I went to the local market and bought some tools. Then we got enough provisions to fully stock a small shop. Back at the house, we gave all the new supplies to Monday and Agnes, and I gave the girls 2 new dolls.
Monday.
Then we set up Agnes's shop. News about her grand reopening spread quickly through the village.
My new store is even better than it was before. Now it's like I always wanted it to be.
Monday got right to work using his new tools.
Making furniture is much easier than it used to be. With my new electric tools, I can work twice as fast, and I don't have to sweat or struggle anymore on hot days.
Today, Monday and Agnes are earning more than 3 times what they used to. They're good people who work hard and love their children. So I know that with the help they've received, they'll continue to do everything they can to build the best lives possible for their family.
I am truly thankful to CBN for all you have done for us. May God grant you your heart's desires.
I am very grateful. I don't know what we would have done if you hadn't come our way. Thank you for helping us when we needed it most.
Whether it's 120 degrees or rainstorms, the water has to be gathered, the food has to be prepared, the work has to be done.
You know, the thing that, the simplest little things make those people so happy. You know, here in America, we have a surfeit of everything, whereas over there, a little doll, a little cloth doll thrills a little girl. And the fact that they have clean water. Ladies and gentlemen, are you aware, you know, I remember Warren Buffett talking about he won the ovarian lottery. And I think it is so true. You were born in America. You were able to come here. Just think of what we've got. We've got sanitation. We've got sewage, which takes away the waste. We have a marvelous medical system, unbelievable, unparalleled in the world. We have a system of laws. I mean, this country is so great. And overseas, people suffer so much. And I've been in many of them, and I've seen the privation. I remember one leper colony that we were helping, and those people didn't even have a Band-Aid. They had no bandages, and you know, they had the sores and everything. But we could help, and a little bit, and they're so appreciative. And as Dan said, in Nigeria, they were good people. They just needed a little help. And look what happened. Their lives are flourishing. So, folks, your labor in the Lord is not in vain. And God looks down from heaven and he says, do you really care about the poor and the needy? Do you care for those who are suffering? Do you take the prisoners out of the chains and captivity? Do you try to deliver from darkness? Well, the answer is yes, we do, and yes, we are. And all of us together can make it happen, and Tara's going to tell us how.
Exactly. It's joining the 700 Club. You know, we are a club, a gathering of people, thousands of us, who are out to change the world in some of the ways that Pat just mentioned and many, many more. And if you'd like to be a part of that, it is so simple. It's a commitment of 65 cents a day, $20 a month. And you join with the rest of us by calling that toll-free number on your screen. It's 1-800-759-0700. Just say, I want to join the 700 Club. We welcome you to the family of ministries here. It means even more families like Monday's will be helped somewhere tomorrow. So we want to say thank you by sending you this, Living Under God's Blessing. It's a DVD teaching that we think will be really wonderful to you and to your family, to your loved ones. So you call now. You can also join us, by the way, by logging on to CBN.com, but do it today. We can make a difference. Together, we can make a significant difference. Well, up next, the All-American linebacker who got sacked.
Doctors said, you know, Mr. Herzlich, I'm sorry, but Mark will never be able to play football again. They told me, you might not even live until next season.
Hear how Mark Herzlich got back on the field. Plus, we're going to be answering your email questions, so don't go away. We'll be back.
Our bodies are vulnerable to attack.
Nobody left to fight the cold and flu entry.
Because of our food.
Anything that ends in an ose, that's a sugar.
We'll show you how to protect your health by watching what you eat.
Most important thing that feeds our defense system is in fact food and food choices.
Part 2 of our immune boosting series.
It's a numbers game and a speed game.
On the next 700 Club.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN Newsbreak. Will they or won't they? That's the question as observers of the Supreme Court wonder if it will take up the contentious issue of same-sex marriage in the new term that starts today. The court may also take up important cases on Obamacare and abortion before the term is out in June. ENZ, the Hindi version of the 700 Club, is celebrating 9 years of broadcasting the gospel in India. ENZ shares a message of hope through real-life stories of people whose lives have been changed by God. It also highlights how CBN is bringing hope to people through humanitarian outreaches. ENZ currently airs on a major Hindi network with a potential audience of about 170 million homes all across India. It also airs in Pakistan and can be seen elsewhere throughout the Indian subcontinent. They receive an average of 4,000 calls and almost 2,000 text messages each month. Well, you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international. Pat and Terry will be back right after this.
To see this week's top on-demand videos, go to cbn.com.
Pro football, they're big. At 6'4", 246 pounds, Mark Herzlich is the last thing you'd want to see standing between you and the end zone. He's delivered his fair share of helmet crunch no-hits, and he's received them well. In fact, one hit almost killed him, but this one didn't happen on the football field. Watch this.
I put out this stoic face to the world saying, don't worry about me, I'm okay. I'll be okay. And that was for my family, that was for my friends, that was for my brothers. And inside, I was hurting. And inside, I was scared.
Mark Herzlich was one of the best college linebackers in the country after his junior season in 2009. He was projected to be a top NFL draft pick.
I was up for big awards. I was named All-American, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and I started to feel like I was invincible and that nothing could touch me, and that no matter what I did, I was going to have a great life.
But just before spring ball, he began feeling pain in his leg that prevented him from completing his workouts. Soon, the pain began to spread.
It wasn't located in my knee anymore. It spread out throughout my whole femur, and my quad, and my hamstring, and my low back.
After seeing several doctors, Mark and his parents went to see an oncologist. He was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma, a rare form of bone cancer.
My dad all of a sudden spoke up, and it kind of snapped me back into focus and said, okay, well, what does that mean? You know, Mark is a good football player and hopes to have a career out of that. When will he be able to play again? And the doctors said, you know, Mr. Herzlich, I'm sorry, but Mark will never be able to play football again.
Mark was devastated.
Yesterday, I was ready to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year again, to get drafted in the top 10 in the NFL draft, to make tons of money, to have the life I had always dreamed of. And today they told me, you might not even live until next season.
Still, Mark wasn't ready to give up his dreams so easily.
I said, Dad, don't worry. I'm gonna beat this, I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna play football again.
Mark began chemo immediately. 2 months later, he received a call from a Walter Musgrove. Walter introduced himself and shared with Mark that he once had cancer and had beaten the cancer.
He says, "Mark, do you pray?" And I said, you know, I went to church when I was little and like I've prayed before. He goes, "You wanna know how I beat cancer and came back? God helped me." And I started praying and I prayed specifically. And I said, man, this is really powerful stuff. And so I hung up the phone with Walter and I made a decision that I was gonna start praying.
Mark says at first his prayers were simple.
And I remember my first prayer back from not praying for a while was like writing in a diary. It was like, "Dear God, this is Mark Herzlich. I hope you hear my prayer. I would love to be healthy again and play football again. Amen."
Shortly after, Mark heard about a new type of radiation treatment, but it was radical and risky. Mark admits he was scared.
I turned to God for his wisdom and for his confidence and for his comfort. So ended up making this decision that we're gonna take the riskier route because it wasn't as much how do I wanna die, it's how do I wanna live.
Over several months, Mark endured 6 rounds of chemo and 50 cycles of radiation. That was followed by a surgery to help strengthen his femur. Then, the doctor walked in with news.
He goes, "Mark, this was the best surgery that I ever done in my life." And I was like on morphine, like, "Oh, cool, man." Like, that's awesome. And he told me for the first time, he said, "Mark, I want to see you running again once you get out of bed. And then, you know, if that goes well, you should put a football helmet back on and see how that goes." This was 6 months of people telling me, "You can never play football again." And now my surgeon was saying, "Let's go give this a try."
It was a long and grueling process. But on October 3rd, 2009, Boston College linebacker Mark Herzlich returned to the gridiron with a vengeance. Then in 2011, he signed with the New York Giants. That year, he and the G-men fought their way to the Super Bowl 44 championship. Today, Mark is cancer-free and preparing to head into yet another NFL season with the Giants. In his book, What It Takes, Mark shares his story and wants to show fans that with God, no obstacle is too great to overcome.
We are his masterpiece, the greatest creation he's ever made. See what God has to offer you. See what he can do and you'll be amazed. When stuff hits you hard, don't put that blame on God. Put that weight on God. Say, "God, take that weight off me." And he will, and he'll carry you through the shadow of death because he wants you to come out on the other side.
What a testimony. You know, folks, I've been thinking more and more about God. And I'm aware that if we have the Spirit of God within us, there's nothing impossible. And healing of our body is really nothing for the Lord. It's a huge miracle. In Mark's case, a huge miracle. And he had all kinds of medical help along the way. But God saw him through. And God can do the same thing for you. The Lord is able. With men, it's impossible, Jesus said, but with God, all things are possible. All things are possible. And that includes healing of various types of sarcoma and anything else that comes upon you. God is able. Terry?
Well, you just saw a part of Mark's incredible story. If you'd like to know more about it, check out his book. It's called What It Takes: Fighting for My Life and Love of the Game. And this is available in stores nationwide, wherever books are sold. Well, it's a brand new week. We've got a brand new edition of Bring It On for you. Marilyn says, Luke 21 describes the signs of the end times. Do you think Jesus is coming back soon? Pat's going to tackle that question and more when we come back.
University, I'm pleased to report, has just finished a biophysical laboratory. It's now offering a groundbreaking undergraduate biophysical sciences degree. They got all kinds of programs, science, ethics, faith, and pre-med and pre-nursing and all the rest of it to train you to be whatever you want to be. So if you're interested in that phase of life, Regent University has got it now. The number's on your screen. There it is. All you have to do is call in 1-800-210-0600. 0060. I'll say it right in a minute. Regent University. It is exciting what's happening. And we had the head of the Eastern Virginia Medical School to give a talk when we inaugurated this lab. And he was inspiring, a wonderfully brilliant man, and I hope that we can have some interchange between those nice people at the Eastern Virginia Medical School and potential. There's a shortage of nurses, shortage of medical professionals, health administrators, all this thing. We're going to be giving degrees.
I was just with the young woman on Friday night who's in that program, who was raving about it and just very excited at Regent.
Well,
very excited
I'm glad.
about it.
I'm raving too. No, it's really terrific. All right, what's that?
Okay, it's time to bring it on with some of your email questions. So let's start with Marilyn Pat, who says, Luke 21:20 says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." What are your thoughts on this? The signs are all there for Jesus coming soon.
All right, there are two things that Jesus is talking about. His people said, what are the signs of your coming and of the end of the age? And Jesus first is talking about Jerusalem, and he said, you know, when you see it compassed about by armies, get out of there. Flee to the hills, go hide. Don't be exposed, because it's going to be really tough. And it was. I mean, the blood flowed up to the horses' bridles. They say there were so many people being butchered. It was just a horrible thing. So there's some of what he said that dealt strictly with the fall of Jerusalem under Titus. I think it was AD 70. And so that's part of it. Then he goes beyond that to talking about the end of the age, and he talks about the days of Noah, he talks about the days of Sodom. And how do you know? He said it, I want to make this very clear. He said, nobody knows that day or the hour, only the Father. He said, but when he was there, he didn't know. The angels don't know.
At the same time, though, he told us to watch for these
watch
signs,
for it,
right?
but you don't know the day or the hour.
Right.
We don't. So he said, occupy till I come. Our job is to get people unto Jesus. That's what we do, not to speculate. But the time clock is Israel. The focus is on Jerusalem. It's not Paris, Bonn, London, or New York, or Washington. It is Jerusalem. So in any event, that's the time frame. Are the signs there? Are they building up in intensity? Yes, one after the other, but nobody knows the day or the hour. I mean, that's what he said, occupy till I come. So our job, get people unto the Lord now, because we may not have a long time to do it.
Here's a viewer with a good question. Why did Uzzah have to die when he tried to save the Ark of the Covenant from tipping over when David was bringing it back to Jerusalem? He was trying to help keep it from falling.
Big mistake to try to help God from falling. Big mistake. Don't try to help God. God knows what he's doing. But the word was only the Levites should carry the ark. And Uzzah was not one of the Levites. And he reached out to do it. Now, there are people who speculate that, well, maybe it was some kind of an electrical charge in that ark that killed him. I don't know what it was. And so you can speculate all you want to. But you don't mess with the holy things of God. When he says Levites carry it only, and the Levites themselves couldn't look in the Holy of Holies. So only certain people and only Aaron and his sons could go into the Holy of Holies on a particular day of the year. Very sacred, and God said, don't touch it. So it was going to fall. Get your hand off.
Yeah.
Get your hand off the good things of God. Okay, what else?
This is Ruth, who says, is it wrong to want to go out with men if I'm not physically attracted to the man that's asking me out? I am single and very shy, but I'm not getting any younger.
Well, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, hey, the guy's going to feed you a meal, So
enjoy the company.
Enjoy the company. He's going to have a nice evening. You're going to go out and talk and get to know somebody. Yeah, that's all right. You're not attracted to him. Everybody doesn't have to be a potential mate, you know. So
sometimes people you're not attracted to initially become attractive when you get to know them.
Instead of their physical physiognomy, you finally see that they've got a brain, and the brain is very important. And so, is anything wrong with it? Of course not.
Enjoy your meal. Right. Okay, this is Helen, who says, I belong to the church that believes in replacement theology. I don't believe that. These are good people at this church that do good work and teach the Bible. Should I leave this church? I'm giving my tithe this month to another Christian charity.
Look, I can't tell you what to do with the church. What is replacement theology? Replacement theology says that the promises made to Israel now pertain to the church, that Israel is past and the Jews are past, and now the church is the fulfillment of the promises of God, so therefore they replace Israel. Now, that is a heresy. It is absolutely contrary to the major teachings of the Bible, and so I'm sure you'd be uncomfortable in a church that teaches that, because there's so many things that you want to have love for Israel, you want to have love for the Jews, and these people are not evidencing what you feel, so you might want to find some place where you're more comfortable, but I can't tell you. Well, thank you all for joining us on today's broadcast. We leave you with our Power Minute. John 12, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health just as your soul